Okay, so we are now officially starting the third perek, even though we started it yesterday just to read it. Perek Shlishi, and this is about Kinyan Torah, how to acquire Torah. Okay, so we'll find out. Yeah, right. I mean, it certainly includes Torah knowledge, but we'll see if it includes other stuff also. Okay, so let's reread what we did yesterday. And I realized I made some mistakes yesterday when I translated it because we didn't read the footnotes, and it was we'll go over it again. Starting fresh. Pishlosha Kasarim Nifter Yisrael. With 3 crowns is Israel crowned, and the overarching question we have to ask here is, what does he mean by crown? Okay, Keser Torah, the Keser Kahuna, the Keser Malchus, the crown of Torah, the crown of priesthood, and the crown of kingship. Keser Kahuna Zacha Bo Aaron, the crown of priesthood was Aaron merited it or acquired it. Shneimar, as it says, it should be for him and his offspring after him a covenant, an eternal covenant of kahuna. And we asked the question yesterday that pasuk is on Pinchas, not on Aaron. I could not find anything on this, but I want to show you a tool actually. I'll show you a tool afterwards. Keser Malchus, what was it? No, surprisingly not. You want me to show you now? I'll show you now. So there's a book that Kafech authored or compiled called Hamikra Birambam. Okay, we have a physical copy somewhere in yeshiva. I just haven't seen it in like 15 years. I think we have it. There's a chance we don't have it anymore, but this the building has changed. I don't know, but I have it on PDF, so it is exactly what it sounds like. You look up any pasuk, and it tells you where in all the Rambam's writings he quotes it. Oh, it's a really handy thing. It's like, you know, have you tried Sparta? We don't talk of no. I don't like the Sparta interface. Why? I just don't like it. Yeah, I use all Torah. And are you asking if they have this safer on Sparta? I doubt it. They have this safer, but I was like earlier just looking up possibly on Sparta and seeing wherever it's dropped. Yeah. The only problem is this will also go into his chuvos and his igros, which I don't know. I don't know if sorry, I'm not sure, but so, for example, I looked up in the puzzle we just did, Bamidbar, 25. What is it? What is it? You tell me someone. The 25:13, right? Yeah. Okay. So 25:13, and it says here Mishnah Torah. That's Talmud Torah Gimel Aleph, and then Isur Bia Chaf Yotes. That's it. So you can be sure that the Rambam doesn't quote anywhere else. I looked up Isur Bia Chaf Yotes. He doesn't say anything that would help us in our area. So that's that's it. Okay. But we'll find out that this did help me afterwards. Okay. But it's a good tool to use. Yeah.
I had a thought on that problem.
Sure. That does ring a bell. That does ring a bell. Yeah. Right. That's true. Sure. Okay, so let me repeat that. So Chaim said that the Rambam said, where do you say he said it? In the Hakdama to the Yad? Okay, yeah, I don't remember either, but somewhere the Rambam says that when he quotes a pasuk, then it would not necessarily be like the source of the thing, but it'll just be a pasuk that is illustrates it or something like that in some other way. Not that we derive anything from it. And so perhaps that's what the Rambam is using here to illustrate this idea, even though it's not directly supporting the fact that he quoted. Another explanation you can give here is that what's plain pshat that Pinchas was zoche the kunas bris kunas olam lo ulazaro acharav. Like he was a descendant of Aaron. So like what was the situation before Pinchas was zoche to this?
Like would it be possible before this he was not a descendant of Aaron, that just like Yaakov adopted Shem and Ephraim,
yeah.
After this Pinchas was adopted.
Well, he's definitely a descendant of Aaron because Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. Okay, but I think you can make a similar move though, and I think people. Correct, right. So what was going to happen was that Aaron and Nadav and Avihu and Elazar and Itamar got made into Kohanim. Let me just look real quickly. I can check and see if it's a midrash by looking at Torah. Hold on.
The tears to all his kasha from.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is a problem in the pshat, right? Right. The only question is it a unanimous answer, or is it not? So let's see here. All Torah. Hello. Okay. But midbar 25.
But also, for all of Aaron's sons made Kohanim, I mean, like, just always wait. What helped me not is that playing is he was expecting a higher birth rate than they put all.
No, Fortune is not that.
Putting aside any issues of ratio of firstborns to new marriages, we have 20,000 firstborns from 0 up versus 600,000 adult males. It's like 30. It's like 30 to 1, which I don't have a problem with. I'm just saying that that's more the opposite.
The Torah Shemima doesn't bring it down, which doesn't mean that it's not actually a chazal, but does Rashi? Yeah, so Rashi says this. Let's see if we can track it down. Bris kunas olam she'afal pi shekvar nasna kuhuna lazaro shel Aaron. Even though the kuhuna was already given to the offspring of Aaron, lo nitna ela Aaron ulevanav shenimshechu imo uletodo seim sheyivaldu achar himashchan. Right. So it was only given to Aaron and his children who were anointed with him, and to their offspring who would be born after their anointment. Aval Pinchas shenolad kodem lahem, but Pinchas who has been Elazar, who was son of Elazar, who was born before that, and he was not anointed. Lo ba l'chlal kahuna ad kan. He did not come into the kahuna until now. So I guess that's an open Gemara, right? Pinchas was not kahunified until he killed Zimri, right? Yeah. So I guess my answer is not going to work out. Yeah, I didn't even have a full answer. I was just going to say that, like, or maybe you can, I don't know, that you can't really say that Zera Aaron got secured the kuhunas, the keser kuna until all of his offspring got it. Meaning if there were offspring who didn't have it, you can't really say that Zachabo Aaron. So it's a weak point, but it's a teretz. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That bothers me also. I was just thinking that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I just would stop too.
I mean, we can find out. Can't we find out by looking in Sefer Divrei Hayamim?
I don't think it's.
Let's look.
I just looked up Aaron Bible lineage.
Okay.
Some good charts.
Let's see. Aharon. Maybe it's the next perek. So for those who don't know, it's going to be before this. In Divrei Hayamim starts off with a genealogy. Elazar.
One of my favorite parts where someone just
goes
off and does their own thing, where they go to gay.
Nadav. Aminadav.
I think whether they go on the other.
Why is it not?
I guess of the value.
Oh, it's going by each of them. Okay, Bnei Aaron, Nadav Avihu, Elazar v'Itamar. Elazar holid as Pinchas, Pinchas holid as Avishua, Avishua holid as Buki, Buki holid as Uzi. This is not all of them then, yeah. The only reason I thought is because it did say earlier, like in the first part, the multiple sons, right? Like it's listing all of David's sons, so I wasn't sure. It was worth a shot. Yeah. All right, fine. All right. So we don't know, or at least we don't know. Maybe someone does. Okay. So then that's the Keser Kahuna. Keser Malchus Zacha Bo David. The Keser Malchus was merited by David. Shnemar Zaro Lolam Yehiyeh. His offspring will be forever. V'chiso Kashemesh Negdi, and his throne will be like the sun before me. Keser Torah and the crown of Torah. Harihu Munach V'Omen Muchan Lakol. It is sitting there, standing there. It's resting, standing, ready for everyone to take. Shenemar, as it says, Morasha Kilas Yaakov, an inheritance of the congregation of Yaakov. Kol mi sheyirtze yavo b'yuta. Anyone who wants can come and get it. Okay. Yeah. And then we read the second one, and this is where I made the mistakes. And then we'll try working stuff out. Shema Tomar, maybe you'll say She'osan Haksarim Gedolim Mikeser Torah. Maybe you say that those crowns are greater than the crown of Torah. Harihu Omer Bi Malachim Mimlocho V'Rosnim Yechokuku Tzedek. but it says, through me kings will reign and officers will engrave righteousness. Be sarim yasoru, through me ministers will officiate, and that's from Mishlei. Halamarza, you learn from here, shekeser Torah gadol mikeser kahuna, that the crown of Torah is greater than the crown of kahuna, v'cheser malchus, and greater than the crown of malchus. Amru chachamim, the chachamim said, mamzer tamid chachamim kodem l'kohen gadol am aretz, that a bastard Talmud Chacham comes before a Kohen Gadol who's ignoramus. Shnemar, as it says, Yakarahim Pninim. It is more precious than pearls, or whatever you say, Pninim are. Yakarahim Kohen Gadol Shniknas Lifnai Lifnim, which means greater, more precious than a Kohen Gadol who enters into the inner sanctum. Yeah. So I said yesterday erroneously that Kodem, Kohen Gadol, Talmud Chacham Mamzer, Kodem Kohen Gadol Amaretz is in terms of kavod. Okay. It is, but it's more than that. Okay, so let's look at Mamzer on the Rav Makbilis footnotes base. Mamzer, Zehaba Hanolad Erva Minaraz. Okay, so he first defines Mamzer. That's a offspring from one of the Arayos, Chutz Mina Nida, but not from Nida. Right? Nidos is one of the Arayos, but that will not generate a Mamzer. Can you imagine the problems if that happened?
What?
Of just like how many Mamzerim there would be? Yeah.
Oh no, it would be great. Then there'd be no problem solved because everyone would be a mom.
Right. Well, it'd be problem for
No, I don't think that.
Okay.
Right, yeah. Right.
Okay.
Well, I mean, but Gerim can marry Mamzerim, so you know, yeah.
Yeah.
Mamzer and Ger can be there, but you know, because they're a different kahal. Okay.
So can we just throw the mom part by just declaring everyone a momser on the basis of by sheer probability it's impossible to say like if you I wanted to for you to go back for everyone's genealogy to be a momser. Because if you have one momser, you have to figure that out.
No, I don't think so because I think it's what was it? Yeah, I don't think it's for sure. First of all, and secondly,
Like you said, because if one of your parents is momser, then you're a momser.
I'm not brushed up on it, but I would say though also that I think if you okay, I'm not gonna say, especially if it's in a also I'm not gonna I need to look it up before I go into it. Talmud Chachamim, fine. So he finds a Talmud Chacham in Daled Chav Gimel. All right, Mamzer, here's the part. Mamzer Talmud Chachamim Kodem Lefarnes also. Okay, so to support him, okay, in terms of like tzedakah, or liftos oso min hashevi v'kodama, or to redeem him from being a captive. Okay, now obviously it's not talking about supporting a Talmud Chacham in all the ways that are usher, right? It talks about like it's in Hilchos Matanos Aniyim. Okay, in fact, let's just look there because I'm not familiar.
Wait, that's not
What?
Yeah.
That's still not a finish. In the I did this recently.
Oh yeah.
In the
That's why it's not
Rambam's
yeah.
halacha of redeeming a captive. It
Yeah.
explicitly says that you do Talmud Chachamim before Kohanim. So like why did he just point that out?
Yeah, the footnote is not to make chidushin. The footnote is to tell us the facts
Okay,
from the
fine,
Rambam.
fine,
Yeah.
fine.
But let's just do this really quickly. Matnas Aniyim, in Zrayim, Matnas Aniyim. Right, that they were so poor, right? But here's the thing, though, is that I don't know what level of poverty the Rambam is going to be talking about here, because there he was talking about how they were poor in the sense that they were like drawing water and stuff. But yeah, but I don't know if that's gonna be the same as this, though. Let's see. What halakha is it? Yud Zayin. Okay, so Yud Zayin. Hailefanenu anim harbe. If there were in front of us many poor people, o shavuyim harbe, or many captives, vein bekis kadei lafarnes, o kadei lachasos, o kadei liftos es kulan, and you don't have enough money to sustain or to cover, to clothe, or to redeem all of them. He didn't mention naked people, right? He throws in the remedy. Lachasos assumes to clothe the naked, right? Yeah. Makdimin as hakoin lelevi. So you go first Kohen, then Levi. V'Levi kodem Yisrael, Levi then Yisrael. Yisrael l'chalal. Yisrael over a, how do you translate chalal? Invalidated Kohen, whatever. V'chalal l'shtuki. I always forget what shtuki is. I think that's another type of psul. Shtuki la'asufi. A sufi is a kid who was gathered, literally a gathered in kid. Yeah, it's an orphan that you don't know. Yeah, like you don't know whose lineage it is. Like a street kid, right? A foundling, yes. That's probably the best word. Asufi la mamzer. Asufi comes before mamzer. Mamzer le natin. Natin is someone whose like genitals are mangled. I think. Is that a natin? I think so. I'm not sure. Natin kodem leger.
What?
That's surprising because there's so many psukim about sustaining the ger, and the gerim like are up there when it comes to lekapeya and shechacha. You know, shehanatin gadol imanu. Oh, gadel imanu b'kedusha. Oh, because this is going by a different system. I mean, still shocking, but the natin grew up with us in a state of kedusha. The ger kodem le'eved mushuchra, and a ger is before a freed servant. Yeah, because you think that they're the same, right? Yeah. Lafi shahaya bichlal arur. Oh, because he was included in a curse. In curses are you? Okay. I don't know which curse he's talking about, but I assume that he was in a curse because he was an eved. Whereas ger is not necessarily.
Maybe I should think. Well, parties wanted to say curse specifically canonic, like that, but like it doesn't work because it doesn't say that.
Well, I think this. You are right that this doesn't say that, but the implication, I think, is that it is an eved kanani. Yeah.
Like there has to be.
Like I don't think. Do we even use eved mishukar for a eved ivri? I don't think we do.
Well, no, there are.
No, I'm
No, but I don't like a freed slave. Do we use that?
It's like Eved Kanani versus Eved Mitzri or an Eved Arabi.
Eved kanani is just Eved kanani is just a name for a non-Jewish eved.
Okay, I was just thinking like the curse of Canaan.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
Like-
yeah. I don't think it's talking about that curse. Yeah, right. It's just yeah.
Yeah, that's what that
Right.
means that once they're freed, once they're like 10 years up, then they become fully Jewish. Not
Right,
fully, they
right.
become- Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not-
they're
it's
the
not-
equal of a ger.
It's not talking here. It's not when they're an Eved. It's after.
It's after they're freed. Yeah, that's what mishukar means. Yeah, right. And so that's why he's saying that they were included in our, which is interesting that we include their previous status because right or
Because we're just mentioning.
no, he's saying you don't look at their previous status. Oh, you mean because of the gadol b'kedusha thing?
No, I mean,
Yeah,
like,
we do look at the previous
if you
status there.
just put Ger right above Eved Meshuchar, then we are looking at the Ger.
Right, but the thing is, just to respond to what you were saying, I don't think goyim are right, but he's saying right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know which curse it is. I can look it up tomorrow in the Makbili on that. Okay, Bamei Devar Memorim. I've never actually looked at this halacha. I just heard about it. Bamei Devar Memorim. When does this refer to? When we apply this hierarchy, B'shahayu shavin b'chachma, when they're equal in chachma. About im haya kohen gadol am haaretz umamzer tamid chachamim. But if you had a kohen gadol who's am haaretz and a mamzer who's tamid chachamim kodem, v'chein hagadol b'chachma. Kodem es chavera, and then similarly in people who both have chachma, but one is greater in chachma than his fellow. V'im haya echa mehen rabba o aviv, afal pi sheyesham gadol mehen b'chachma, rabba o aviv shu talmid chachamim kodem lezeh shu gadol im mehem b'chachma. So if you have, let's say, like a son who is a great chacham, and he has a father who is a chacham, the son, the rav comes first, right? Even though he's lesser in chachma. Yeah. Because he's your rav or your father. Yeah, right. I think your father, right? Or your rav. Meaning ordinarily we go by the greatest chachma, except in this case where kavod rav and kavod av trump your own chachma. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, so that was what I learned about the kodem, right? So kodem is not just in terms of kavod, because this is not a kavod issue, right? It's mashma, right? This is, it is a kavod issue. The second halacha is a kavod issue. So maybe it is a kavod issue. The first issue was not a kavod issue. The first issue was like rank in the nation in terms of like kidusha or whatever, something like that. Yeah. Right.
Let me say to assume that the Maldish Chacham that same logic applies to Ger Chacham, which
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay.
Even though it's a lower ranking, I mean, yeah. Right. I think the reason why,
like I know it's just like a phrase from the Gemara, and everything, like that could just be the easy phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah, never mind.
Okay, so the second thing is, this is an interesting point here. Amhar we usually translate as ignoramus, right? But Amhar literally means person of the land. So there's a Rambam in the פירוש המשניות on Avos, which we're not going to look up inside because he just pulls the quote here. Mishish bo derech eretz ve'ein bo Torah. Someone who has derech eretz and not Torah. Here derech eretz I think means here derech eretz means midos. I don't think it means like a livelihood. Klomer shu roy li yishuv haaretz. He's fit for society, the kibbutze ha'arim, and in the gatherings of cities. Lefi shishbo midos shetiti bohem chavruso im zulaso. He has midos that are beneficial for his fellow around him. So Amar's ignoramus in English has a connotation, like it emphasizes the ignorant part. Yeah. Amar's emphasizes that like what he does have, which is the fact that he does have like societally beneficial midos, you know.
You should say it's commoner.
You could translate as commoner, but it doesn't carry that connotation. A man of the land, right, or person of the land.
Noble savage.
No. Yeah.
Oh, you know peasants. Those are not savage.
Pleasant peasants would be the thing, right? Because he's saying that he gets along with the people in society, but he's like, yeah.
I don't even know about
Yeah, it does. And yeah. Okay, so that's the Amaretz. And and then what I did was I looked up in the Kafka thing, that pasuk in Mishle, okay? Ches Tesvav. So check this out, just to show you. Ches Tesvav. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So Mishle Ches, and I was shocked to find. Yeah. So he quotes it in our halacha and then in Avos Daled Yud Zayin. Okay. And this led me to a Mishnah I had forgotten about in Perkei Avos. I thought that there was a Mishnah in Perkei Avos about Keser Torah, and I tried looking for it yesterday and couldn't find it. And then it led me to the Mishnah, which is here. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Hevi Zahir b'Talmud, Sheshigagas Talmud Olazadon. So Rabbi Yehuda says you should be careful in Talmud. We're not going to go into what Talmud is. Plain pshat is, it means just in Torah study, but because an error in Talmud will count as intentional. And then Rabbi Shimon, so that we're not going to be concerned with now. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Shlosha Kasarim, there are 3 crowns. Keser Torah, V'keser Kuna, V'keser Malchus, okay? V'keser Shem Tov Ola Al Gabehen. So there's really 4, right? But the crown of a good name is above all of them, okay? So Rambam here says, Elu hashalosh ma'alos tovos nasnu umazo. These 3 virtues, good virtues, which Kafik translates as malos gedolos, okay, were given to this nation. So first of all, he's saying crown means virtue or statures, okay, which that's a hint. Betchilas nesinas haTorah, at the beginning of the giving of the Torah, v'hein hakahuna v'malchus v'Torah. Kahuna zakabo Aaron, malchus zakabo David, v'keser Torah munach l'chol mishirta lihis aterbo. Okay, so the only word he adds here is the crown of Torah is there for anyone who wants to glorify himself with it. Although you're not supposed to glorify yourself with the crown of Torah. It's also funny. What does the Kafik say there? Does he even use that phrase? Lis Aterbo. Yeah, that's strange. That's like a contradiction. Okay, fine. That's not what I wanted though. Maybe you'll say that this crown is lesser than the 2. Enokain, it's not true. And in it are the other 2. That's the line that is new. Okay, that we didn't get from the other one. We inferred it from the pasuk though. Shnemar bi malachim yimlochu, through me kings reign. V'roznim yichoku tzedek v'amar bi sarim yasoru. V'gomer aval keser Shem Tov magia me'es haTorah me'es haTorah. So the keser Shem Tov comes from the Torah. Ratzalamar yediasa v'hama'aseh ba, knowing it and acting in accordance with it. Ki bahen yagia Hashem hatov hamiti, because from there you'll get to the true Shem Tov. Let me just see what Kafik says there. Yeah, so it's not anything new that we couldn't have gotten from the Mishnah Torah, but he does make it clear that the other 2 crowns come through this one. Okay, so now the question is, what is the Rambam saying? What is this idea of the crowns? And another question, which we might not be able to answer right now, but I want to ask it anyway. What's the order of the prakim in Hilchos Talmud Torah? Okay, first perek makes total sense because that's the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, and that's where he explained the mitzvah. Second one is the childhood education, okay, which you could argue makes sense because that's where it all begins. Right, that's also true. It's a direct outgrowth of the mitzvah because it was something that, well, really, it's even better with the Aruch HaShulchan we did yesterday because really, according to that, the father would have done, you wouldn't have needed the second perek if it weren't for the fact that fathers weren't, doing their jobs or people weren't taking in orphans, So the second perek kind of popped up as a societal necessity. So is the plain pshat that this is now he just wants to show you the heights of Talmud Torah, that the highest you can get to, like you could say that, but like just the question is, how does this fit into to the halachos? Yeah, we want to do the rest of it. Yeah. Okay. So, but what's the deal with the
Yeah,
kessers?
what even is this? Like, doesn't sound like a halacha.
It doesn't sound like halacha, right? It sounds like this is like something you'd find in perek Avos, like we just did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, do you need this in order to fulfill the halacha? That's the question.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I have a theory. I just came up with that. Well, sorry. I have not. This is not a theory about the Kassarim, but a theory about like answered Oren's question. We said that Talmud Torah is kind of like this open-ended mitzvah where you have to be involved in learning it. I can see an idea that if the Rambam didn't tell you the full level of involvement in Talmud Torah, like what it looks like to do this mitzvah bishlei musa, then that would be a lack in the presentation of the halachos. In the same way as, for example, when it comes to Yiras Hashem and Avas Hashem, or mitzvos in general, he tells you like the highest levels that you can get to, because those are open-ended mitzvos. It's not like a distinct thing. This is how you do the Maisa mitzvah and you're done. Yeah.
I thought Talmud Torah was a closed, probably the closed-ended mitzvah with a very high part of closing as opposed to.
How are you defining closed-ended versus open-ended?
And then open-ended is more just a thing where you might do some of doing it. The more you do, the better. Like there's no shiur doing a commentary. It's like an all the time thing, which the shiur is all the time. Anytime you're not doing it, you're being volatile. This is both the opposite where you're not being over Hashem this very second. You're being volatile all the time.
According to Sefer Cleanup, you are, right? Yeah. According to the Rambam, no.
I was saying like you're saying
right.
After what I say this indulging and going into the level, like say if I watch a movie or read that would be this sort of Bittul Torah.
Yeah, I mean that's a question that I kind of want to be on the lookout for when we do this, because I think there is a notion in the frum world of Bittul Torah being like that, where like any second you're not involved in Torah, then you're being Mevatel Torah. But I want to see if the Rambam even talks about Bittul Torah.
To me, audio moto very much felt like that.
Right. Well, he does. So, what's interesting though is the way. See, I say it refutes your point, right? Because he should have said Kol zman shelo yasok b'limud hu batal mi Talmud Torah, but he's saying Kol zman shelo yasok b'limud hu shacheach. That he seems to imply that the problem is not that you're not involved in it. The problem is that you are forgetting it.
Right. Also, this is a practical matter. If you're always learning Torah, eventually you'll have like diminishing returns. So you need to do other things in order to like
you'll have diminishing returns,
net gain.
Will you have diminishing returns within Torah, or you just create other problems?
Well, I think those problems will cause diminishing.
Okay, fine. Yeah, right. Yeah. That was towards the very beginning, wasn't it? Oh no, it was in Ches, wasn't it in Ches?
It's not like sometimes that there's not like having you possibly have all
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Yeah. It sounds like the way he formulates the halacha. All we've seen in terms of the structure is you have to be kovea. What was his lashon in that halacha there? He says you have to be chayv likbolo zman l'talmud Torah b'yom u'v'layla. That seems to be the only rigid requirement. What was it?
You have to be what?
Kovea, you have to set up a time to do Torah in the day and at night. Okay, so crown ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just get on the table all the things associated with crown. So there's royalty, obviously. There's kavod. There's privilege, right? The fact that, let's say, like with Aaron and the Melucha, they come with certain like rights and privileges that they have. Like you know, I don't know what else. Is that it? Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, it's just such a strange thing. The Kesher Torah is munach v'muchan l'kol. All right, let's leave it and come back to it if we think of something.
Does he just leave it there? Right. Okay, so right, that's true. Right. Right, that's true. Yeah. Right. Okay, so that's good, and I'm just going to add to that. Well, I'm going to say it, and I'll add to it again. Is that people, when they look at the crowns, they look at obviously Kohanim are like a class of like crowned people, and kings are a class of crowned people. But either with Torah, they don't look at it that way, or they think that it's a class of crowned people, and it's not open for everyone. You know, so he has to tell us that it's there for anyone to take. Like if you look at the way, for example, in certain like I'll give you an example, but I'll turn off the recording. Hold on. Another example of this is like in certain societies, the way that academics are viewed. Not in our society necessarily, because I think it's recognized that like if you go to college, you can like get a degree, but like in certain places where scholars are revered, it's like an aristocracy that like is fixed, and like if you are a peasant, there just is nothing you could do about it.
That's what they've heard in certain uses, like various families of learners, or I guess what you call the inherent, I guess the imams, like for many generations, or the fellow families marrying each other a lot.
Or even like the race Galusa, right? That was an inherited position as well, So
I also think that in practice, if not in theory, like the Gaon and the Student companies are also
right. That's also true. The
like in theory, it wasn't like they're like one, two.
Right. It became that. Yeah. Yeah. So I think maybe the way to phrase this is the point here is that Torah is a meritocracy, right? Like you can get as far as as much as you put into it, and it's there for anyone. Like it's not an aristocracy. It's not a dynasty. It's like, and it's better than, yeah, right. Because that's, we don't know what this means yet, but that's Bi malachim yimlochu v'rozim yichochu tzedek. We still don't know what pshat of that is. Yeah. Yeah, hold on just 1 second. Okay, so I think I think this, without even knowing why this whole perek is here, this is a good way to lead the perek, which is saying this is within everyone's grasp. And again, I think we just don't realize how much of a chiddush that is. That like, yeah, right, because to a certain extent, America is built on that idea. And we just have not lived in a society where it is otherwise, so we don't see like the obstacles to that in the same way that maybe existed. Okay, let's go on now. Gimel. Ein lecha mitzvah b'chol ha-mitzvos kulan shehi shekula keneged Talmud Torah. There is no mitzvah in all the mitzvos that is shkula. So literally shkula is like weighs as much as whose weight corresponds to Talmud Torah. Ella Talmud Torah keneged kol ha-mitzvos kulan. Rather, Talmud Torah corresponds to all the other mitzvos.
What about ציצית?
Yeah. So if you look at the so if you look at the Rambam, no, but I think the Rambam himself uses something different for tzitzius, if I'm not mistaken. Let's review this.
Everyone always says ציצית equals chavurah.
But I think the Rambam says it differently, though. I think. Let's see. Let's see if I'm right. Tzitzius Gimel at the end. He says, "Olam yizaher yehi adam zahir b'mitzvos tzitzius shara kasav shakla v'tala ba kol mitzvos kulan," because the Torah equated it
and made all the mitzvahs dependent on it. So it's not the same lashon that he uses by Talmud Torah. And then check this out also. What else is equal to all the mitzvahs? There's another thing. Bad enough to stop the recording?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, it was worth stopping the recording just because it was a bad joke. Okay. It wasn't actually like raw. Okay, in Avodah Zara, right? Let's see the lashon uses for Avodah Zara. And then Shabbos is the other one. But Shabbos is connected to Avodah Zara. Yeah. So he says, mitzvahs Avodah Zara connected kol mitzvahs kulan. So see, this is where the translations get tricky. The mitzvah of Avodah Zara, or mitzvahs of Avodah Zara. I think he means, the Isser. It corresponds or is parallel to or is opposite. I don't know how to translate connected here, all the other mitzvahs in their entirety. As it says, when you err and do not do all the mitzvahs of Hashem, and from the Torah Sheba'al Peh, we learn that the Torah is talking about Avodah Zara here. You learn from here, you learn from here that anyone who affirms Avodah Zara has denied all of the Torah of Kol Nevi'im, of Kol Mashnis Tzava Nevi'im, and all the Nevi'im and everything that they commanded ad sof ha'olam, until the end of the world. Shneimar min hayom asher tziva Hashem v'halal l'dorosechem, from the day that Hashem commanded it and onwards for your generations. B'chol ha'kofer b'Avodah Zara modeh b'chol Torah kula, and anyone who denies Avodah Zara affirms the entire Torah. V'hi ikar kol ha'mitzvos kulan, and is the root of all the mitzvahs. So you see that in each of these places where he equates all the mitzvahs with something, he uses a slightly different lashon. Avodah Zara, it's keneged. Tzitz, it's shakla v'talaba. And then in Talmud Torah, it's, what did you just say? It is b'chol mitzvahs kulan shi shekula keneged Talmud Torah. Talmud Torah keneged kol mitzvahs. So I guess that second one is kind of like Avodah Zara. It's keneged kol mitzvahs.
What's the difference between all of them?
Different words. Shekula, he does not use by Avodah Zara.
What does that mean?
Weighed.
Okay.
Or I mean, I don't know how, or like it comes from the word shekel, which is a weight, you know.
Oh, okay.
So you say it has equal weight, you know. And then Tzitz, he said it weighs, and all the mitzvahs are attached or dependent on it, but he doesn't use the word keneged.
Okay.
And here he says keneged, shkula, keneged, and keneged. Again, I don't know if this is different. I'm just saying that he does word it differently. Talmud, okay, why though? Talmud maybe l'dei maseh, because Talmud brings you to action. Lefikach haTalmud kodem l'maseh b'chol makom. Therefore, Talmud comes before maseh in all places. We'll have to see what this means. Hay lefanav, so he gives us an example, and according to the real Rambam, this is part of the same halacha. Hay lefanav asiyas mitzvah v'Talmud Torah. If you have in front of you a mitzvah to do and Talmud Torah, im efshar la mitzvah lehe'asos al yidei acherim. If it's possible for the mitzvah to be done by someone else, lo yafsik Talmud, you should not interrupt your Talmud. V'im lav yaseh mitzvah v'yachzor l'toraso. And if not, if no one else can do the mitzvah, then you should do the mitzvah and go back to your Torah. So that's another idea of not bittul Torah, like he doesn't use the phrase, but stopping Talmud Torah, right? That you shouldn't stop it even for a mitzvah if it could be done by someone else. So koshkein, you could say for watching a movie, right?
Also, all those things like, oh, there's a wedding that no one's able to go to. We shouldn't go to them then. Because if we're leaving yeshiva to go to that wedding.
Isn't he saying though that you should though? I mean, I guess if no one else is doing it, right?
He says it's no one else is, or if nobody else can.
If it's not possible to be done by someone else. That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right. Stopping, But I guess if you were going to be watching a movie instead, then it's better to go to a mitzvah. Yeah. All right. I feel like we definitely need to read this Rav Makbila footnote. I haven't read it yet, but. Or should we ask questions first? Let's ask questions first. No, Oren's saying if you're in, let's say you're doing night seder.
Yeah, I
and he's saying, because he's saying that presumably someone else is going to do it. It's not like the only person could, right? Meaning, right? Yeah, right. Meaning, if let's say the chassan and kala though dafka need your presence to make them happy, then that's a valid excuse.
Yeah.
I understand this point.
Yeah.
You know, I want to get that money.
Hmm.
How do you not mention the organization? That like, there's a mix on that someone else,
Mm.
you know, and. And apart from this one, you know,
Ah. So you're learning.
but not if someone else is in the mikvah and you're not in the mikvah and you don't want if you have a mikvah, then
Right.
you know, yeah.
I see, and that does fit into the Rambam's lashon of hayalafan of asiyas mitzvah, meaning it's your mitzvah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know if when
Right. That's also true, and it seems to imply that you can't just say it means like an optional mitzvah, because then it's infinite. You know, like there are certain mitzvahs where there's no chiyuv incumbent upon you. Like, let's say, for example, like, could you right now go and like get a house and put a mitzvah on it? Yeah. So then why do you ever learn? Like, you know, so, yeah, it's like, you know, right. So it's talking about something where you have a mitzvah responsibility that, you know,
right.
yeah.
So wait, then my question holds up. Then.
No, because he's pushing the question entirely out of the parsha by saying that that wedding thing is an optional mitzvah, like helping
So
add.
you shouldn't go.
No, but then you can now. They're all not making you all the day after.
Right.
Well, I'm saying the mikvah that you're not doing all the day after. So you're just not doing the mikvah. Right.
But I think Oren's making like a kal v'chomer type argument that if a mitzvah you are obligated to do but could do through a shliach,
I'm arguing it's a miscommunication in the mikvah and not going else on. The argument isn't through the mikvah and interrupt on the Torah, the argument is through the mikvah and the Torah. Whereas the mikvah is doing the shliach and through the mikvah and the shliach and through the mikvah.
I need concrete examples. Could you
Okay,
just have examples here?
Like one example, I know you can't do like the shliach, you're not going to get inspired from the mikvah.
Okay, right,
But now it's an example.
right,
Okay, then let's say it's the Torah, right?
right. Okay, so you could just
give someone your money.
Right.
Say, you're my shliach,
Right.
and it's Torah,
okay, good,
and it's more.
right. So now the
And
Rambam's
not in the Torah.
so the Rambam's case of hayalafano asiyas mitzvah of the Talmud Torah is which of those two cases?
It's the Torah.
The tzedakah case. So you either can learn uninterruptedly, or you can interrupt your learning to go give tzedakah, right? And through a
Shliach, this is not. What I'm saying, you can use the shliach and not interrupt the money.
right,
The law is not talking about a case where you have a mitzvah in front of you that you point to when you're not.
right,
Like,
But if there-
a mitzvah in front of you that you have to do,
right.
that you can do on the shliach.
Yeah, but now let's take that case though. So if there is a mitzvah that is optional that you could do, wouldn't the Rambam say you should definitely not interrupt your learning for it?
I'm not sure why that's a hell of
Because if there is an active chiyuv that's
Then it's the spot from the mitzvah, it's doing it on the shliach. It's not doing the mitzvah.
no, but I'm saying in terms of, isn't there a kal v'chomer in the very case itself that like let's say you're in the base midrash and an ani comes in and it's usher for you to ignore the ani and to not give the ani tzedakah, right? So that creates a pressing obligation, which you could do through a shliach or you could not do through a shliach, and that's why this applies. But now someone just says, hey, there's a wedding out there, like, should you interrupt your learning? I would say, of course not. Like in the case of an ani, there is at least a question because you actually have a chiyuv that's chal upon you. But in the case of a wedding, you certainly shouldn't interrupt your learning to go to a wedding.
I'm arguing that it's not how Homer is functioning. In the argument, I couldn't see why you bring up that argument that you don't do that.
Right.
But I'm saying, let's say, I'm just saying that the fact that you do it on the thing from me, is like a reason why you shouldn't stop.
There's a reason why you shouldn't stop.
Yeah,
Right.
not that there's a misdraw. Like,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying though, but I mean, doesn't it? The fact that he presents this in the context of that Talmud is kodem l'maaseh b'chol makom and it's shkula keneged kol mitzvos, doesn't that mean that like if you're involved in learning, which takes precedence over everything and is equal to all the other mitzvos, and someone says, hey, you want to do this random mitzvah that you're not obligated in, isn't it clear that you don't do that mitzvah?
I'm not doing that.
Okay. Is that what you were
Yeah,
arguing?
that's
Yeah,
what
right,
I'm
right.
saying,
Yeah.
You know the fact that you don't mitzvahs in the wrong things.
in the Rambam's case, right? So certainly if you're not doing both mitzvahs, certainly if you
I think the wrong, you know, is when you keep doing both mitzvahs.
right.
Like,
Right.
The thing you're talking about when you go to the wedding.
Right.
You can't do both
Correct.
mitzvahs.
Right.
So there, now you have an opportunity, and choosing the other mitzvah isn't necessarily wrong. I'm not saying the Rambam saying one or the other, but I think you can't limit it as a right.
Well, and I'm saying from the first part of the Rambam that,
Yeah.
of course, Talmud kodim lamasa b'chol makom. Kodim doesn't just mean if they're competing. Kodim is if, you know, like b'chol makom, and if Talmud Torah is equal to all the other mitzvahs in terms of like what's going to be greater, doing something that's equal to taryag or doing something that's equal to aleph, you know, then don't you do the one that's equal to taryag? I think it's just pshat.
So then it's
But-
only, it's basically you should be learning Torah all the time, only in the cases where there's a mitzvah that only you can do.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't mind.
Okay. Okay.
Then you're repeating the whole Torah in mindful, and you're not doing mindful.
Well, you're only gonna do the ones that
How
only.
many-
Yeah. You're going to do the ones that you have to do.
You want something to do that you can't do on the for me, and about like, mindfulness. Well, not I meant.
Right.
You know.
So you're saying that you're never.
You're reading the whole context of
Yeah.
Torah in mindful.
Well, no, not necessarily, right? Because there's one important word here is yafsik, right? Is interrupting your learning,
Okay.
right? And that's part of the Hailafanav thing, right? You know, so interrupting your learning, I could see being a different category than in engaging. You'd be right if like if the question was always, and I agree that this does go against the literal reading of like the first part of the halacha, but like, you know, if it's always a question of do I engage in Talmud Torah or do I engage in another mitzvah, then if I'm reading this literally, then you would never do any other optional mitzvah. But the opposite thing might be
Yeah.
the determinant.
Especially
Yeah.
because he doesn't say that you have to learn all the time. What we were saying.
right,
You
yeah,
just set time. So it means that don't go like if you have your set hour or 2
Yeah.
hours like this,
right,
then you don't leave during that.
yeah.
You can have after that or before that. Then you
Yeah,
can-
that does sound like it. Yeah. Let's look at Rambam Bekius and see if there are any facts. Now that we've dived into this, see if there are any facts that we're missing here. So Gimel. Shatalman mevi l'dei ma'aseh, la'olam halimud tzarech lahavi l'dei ma'aseh. Learning always needs to bring you to action. Bein shu mechavin lahalachos maisios, bein shu b'inyane hakaras Hashem v'darchei hanhagaso as olam. Whether it is learning halacha l'maaseh, or whether it's recognizing Hashem and His ways and how He governs the world, meaning that should also lead you to Maisa. Kafisha Rambam Omer B'Sof Sefer Mor HaNevuchim, like the Rambam writes at the end of the Mor HaNevuchim. I think this is like literally the last line. Shleimus Hadam Asher Ba Yispar Be'emes, the perfection of man in which he can truly glory. He mishi higia lahasagaso yisale kfiya yicholto, is someone who has arrived at apprehension of God according to his ability. V'yeda hashgachaso al bruav. And knows how God governs or supervises his creations. B'hamsa asam, b'han hagasam, how he brings them into existence and how he governs them. Heachi. V'hayu halichas oso ha'adam achar osa hahasaga. And that man should follow after, like literally walk after that apprehension. Mischavin bahen tamid. Intending in it constantly. Chesed, tzedakah, umishpat. Lihizdamos b'masav yisale. To do kindness, righteousness, and justice, and to emulate God's actions. End quote. Ki'im lo yilmad aha adam ech yeda malasos. If a person doesn't learn, how is he going to know what to do? Shari kvar nemar shaha Talmud mevi l'dei ma'aseh, bein ha'ma'aseh mevi l'dei Talmud. That's right. Rambam did quote that earlier. I was like, didn't we read this already? But he quoted that in Aleph Gimel. Because learning brings you to action, but action doesn't bring you to learning. V'gadol Talmud Torah af yoser mikibud ave'im. And Talmud Torah is greater even than kibbud ave'im, which he brings down in Mamrim. Okay, so that didn't help us with any of our halachos here. And this just says b'chol makom b'chol matzav.
Why does it say even greater than kibbud avein? Like I wouldn't have thought that to be
Yeah, me neither.
like a particular, like it's a good mitzvah, sure, but it's not like way up there. You know?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know how you know it. I'm not going to do
Okay, I mean, what we can do is we could just look and see how people bring down the Rambam Shital Halacha, you know, and just see how people take it. Not today, obviously. And then he says, let's just read. Oh, actually, I actually do want to look up that Mamrim thing. Vav Yud Beis through Gimel, because I think that has to do with if they tell you where to learn, or am I imagining that? Yeah. Mamrim Vav.
So that's no, it's not fair.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is why. This is why. Mi she'amar lo aviv la'avor divrei Torah. Okay, if your parents tell you to violate divrei Torah, bein she'amar lo la'avor al mitzvahs lo saseh or levatal mitzvahs aseh, afilu shel divreihem. If they tell you to violate a lo saseh or to be mevatal on aseh, even midurabanan, harizeh lo yishma lo, you should not listen to them. Shneimar ish imo va'aviv tirao ves shab society shmoro. It says in Vayikra, each man shall revere his father and mother, and my Shabbos is you shall keep. Kulchem chayavim b'chvodi, and you learn from there that all of you are obligated in my honor. So it's a very interesting havmina. I always thought it's interesting havmina. Havmina is that you would think that you have to that if your parents tell you violate halacha, then you have to violate halacha. Kamash Malan, no. Why? Because you and your parents are chayav in honoring God.
What if they tell you to hold a more wrinkles pizza?
That's a good question. I don't know. Yeah.
Where you're convinced, like you're 100% convinced this one way, and your parents.
I mean, I would assume that you rely on the Meko Shita. I mean, I just don't know what the wrong ones. Yeah. The next halakha is the one that connects, right? Amar lo aviv hashkeni mayim. So if your father says, "Give me water to drink," mitzvah lasos, and you have a mitzvah to do. If it's possible for that mitzvah to be done by other people, then it should be done, right, by other people. And you should be involved in honoring your father. Because we don't nullify mitzvah because of another mitzvah. But if there's no one else to do the mitzvah, then you should be involved in the mitzvah and leave aside honoring your father. Because both you and your father are obligated in a matter of mitzvah. The Talmud Torah, that's why he brings it in, because the Rambam brings it in. So we'll just shift the question there. The Talmud Torah is greater than kibbud avim. That's a funny thing, right? Because you and your father are both chayiv in mitzvah. Like not even that mitzvah, it's just in mitzvahs per se, you know? Yeah. So strange. Yeah.
No, I think you're saying the Dvar mitzvah is that mitzvah. I'm just reading it wrong.
I think not that mitzvah.
Okay.
Then it'd be mitzvah zo.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, you see the same principle that he said for the kulam chayav michvodi in this next halacha, even though it's not relevant to our sugya. Amar lo aviv hashkeni mayim, amar lo imo hashkeni mayim. So both your mom and dad asked for water at one time. Meniach kavod imo, so you have to leave aside the kavod of your mom. V'osik b'kavod aviv tchila, and you have to take care of the kavod of your father first. Because both you and she are obligated in honoring your father. So that's a similar principle to the Hashem thing. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. But you could show the other one to the feminists, right? About the honoring your wife. No. Yeah, right. I think doesn't he say? I'm not going to quote it from memory because this one I don't know as well. Issues. Kavod. Last one, I think. No, maybe it's not here, or maybe I just missed it. Yeah, fine. I'll have to look it up later. All right, should we stop for today? 2:30. Okay, sounds good. So I'm going to try to look up those practical halachos later.